Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about a very deadly duo, a serial killer tandem, two cousins called the Killing Cousins, David Alan Gore and Fred Waterfield. This is David Alan Gore, his arrest photo, and this is Fred Waterfield. The Killing Cousins, okay? Don't look like monsters. None of them do. There have been other killing couples, killing tandems. We had Leonard Lake and Charles Nigg out in California. We had Bittaker and Norris, the Toolbox Killers. We had Kenneth Bianchi and Bueno. Those cousins are the Hillside Stranglers. So we do occasionally see a serial killer couple or tandem or team. Here we have David Alan Gore, Fred Waterfield, the Killing Cousins, responsible for 6 murders. Confirmed, it is suspected that they killed 20 plus women. They also tried to abduct many others and were unsuccessful. They operated in Vero Beach, Florida, a nice, beautiful beach town in Florida. There's been a movie and book done about them called The Killing Cousins. So let's walk through their story, and I'm going to read a little bit of the dates, just like I always do, just so I get you the facts. I'm not a big fan of reading, but there's some things I want you to know about. So David Alan Gore is born in 1953. His cousin Fred Waterfield was born in 1952. So 52, 53, they're born. And they have an interesting growing up together. And they're almost as close as brothers, they say. When they were in school, they would they would get up on like the balcony or whatever, and they would look down at the PE classes, and they would watch the girls in PE classes, and I would have guessed they probably talked about it'd be nice to have sex with that one or rape that one. And they got in trouble by the gym teacher, actually. Gore, when he was a teenager in high school, 17, 18, he worked at a gas station. And he actually had, he actually pulled something off. He put a little hole in the wall into the women's restroom from like a stock room. So he would be able to go in and spy on women. And again, these are all warning signs. We're starting to see some warning signs of like, hey man, this guy could be dangerous, right? Like he's into, voyeurism. He's into weird things like that, right? So anyways, in 1971, when Gore was 18, I think his Waterfield would have been 19, they raped and molested Waterfield's sister. So Waterfield raped his own sister. Gore participated in it would be his cousin. And that was when they were 18, 19 years old. So here we start the process. Now we know we have a killer in the making. Very dangerous, right? This is how it starts. And at this point, they should have been given help. But people say, how do people become serial killers? They just fall through the cracks. And they gain more and more, more and more, courage to do more and more things. And they get to a point, eventually they love it so much that they no longer care if they get caught. And that's how we have very dangerous serial killers. John Wayne Gacy didn't care if he got caught because he was killing people even in his own neighborhood. So let me just give you a couple dates. So the age of 18, he watches his cousin rape his own sister and he participates. At the age of 21, he gives birth to a son, Michael Gore. At the age of 22, he had a girlfriend. She moved out. At the age of 22, he marries a lady named Connie Ayers. And at the age of 23, 1976, at the age of 23, him and Gore and Waterfield kidnapped their very first victim. Her name was Angela Austin. She was 20 years old. They rape her at gunpoint. And they let her go. And I don't know why they never got arrested for that. The kind of the way they work together is Gore would go out and he would abduct the women, he would kidnap them and tie them up, and then Waterfield would come along and he would participate with them. They'd work together, and it is talk that Waterfield paid Gore to do this. Like he paid him, he rewarded him for his work. Okay, that was at the age of 23, 1976. Also in 76. They shot out a young lady's tires. Her name was Smalley's Tires, trying to kidnap her, unsuccessful. 1976, they attempted to abduct another female. She got away. 1976, at the age of 23, he divorces Connie Ayers. So he marries her in 1975 and divorces her in 1976. He's not doing very good with marriage and women, right? So that's frustrated with women, right? Frustrated sexually. That's another thing we see of these serial killers. So continue with the dates, just to give you the dates. At the age of 24, he marries the first girlfriend that he had a son with. He goes and marries Donna Blanton, his ex-girlfriend, who moved out. So now he's married to her. 1977. 1981, at the age of 27, he's sworn in as an auxiliary deputy. I think it's Indian County in Florida. He's sworn in as an auxiliary deputy, and he gets a badge. And he uses that badge to kidnap and kill women, or at least attempting to kidnap as many women as he can, acting as an officer. A lot of serial killers do that. They pretend to be police officers. He has another son. Jonathan is born in 1981, and then he separates from Donna in 1981. So he marries her in 77. He makes it 4 years this time, and they get divorced in 81. So now is when his crime spree starts. Who knows if they killed before this? Today, we're only talking about confirmed kills. Unfortunately, Gore took these numbers to the grave. He took these victims to the grave. He never talked about it, which is very sad. If he was still alive, I'd be working hard trying to get that information, but he's not. And so, Waterfield is alive, and we'll show you some of his letters he wrote me, but he's claimed to be innocent. So we're never going to bring closure to this case. I'm going to work on Waterfield, but it probably won't work. So 1981, he is 28 years old, Gore. Waterfield's 29. He starts stalking a victim. All right, her name is Ying Ling, the young girl, okay? Young girl here. He starts stalking Ying Ling. She's 17 years old. He's stalking her. He likes Asian women. He prefers Asian women. That's who his fantasy is. And so one day he abducts her at gunpoint with a badge off the school bus. He drives her to her home. When they get to her home, he then abducts the mother. And the mother's name is Sang Ling. And he abducts the mother and daughter. And by the way, like always, all of my photos that I show in my videos, we scan and we put them in my fan club, my Patreon page, myfriendsaremonstersfanclub.com. So you can get, if we're able to obtain crime scene photos and stuff like that, we'll post them in the fan club. So you can go there right now and you can look at crime scene photos. You can look at letters I get from serial killers. They're all scanned, artwork, all that stuff. So it's really worth it. Check it out. They only stay in my fan club for about a month. So when you see the video and you like and you want these photos or whatever, go there and subscribe. It's $10 a month and you can cancel anytime. It is worth it, the content you get. I just posted a video that I just shot with Robert Weldon, the Chalmers serial killer. He's very, very old and he doesn't talk to a whole lot of people. So anyways, here's your first two victims. Rest in peace. How sad. A mother and a daughter. So what he did is he abducted mother and daughter, tied them up, handcuffed them, whatever. He took them to a wooded area. He tied the mother to a tree. Mother got tied to a tree. And he raped the mother. He tied the daughter up too. He raped the mother. And when Waterfield showed up, he didn't like older women. So they both raped the daughter. Gore raped the mother and daughter, and Waterfield only raped the daughter. The mother was, some accounts, she strangled herself tied to the tree as she watched her daughter being raped and murdered. In some accounts, they killed her. In any event, they ended up killing both of these victims, and they dismembered their bodies and put them in oil barrels and buried them. So now we have two confirmed victims. This is happening in 1981. People ask if I interview these people or whatever. I'm still in high school, man. So that was the date of that was February 19th, 81, just to give you some ideas. And then again, they tried to abduct another person on June 14th, 4 months later. So do you think they really took a 4-month break? This is what I always tell people. I think they probably did kill 20 or more. Gore hinted that we killed at least 20, but they probably killed more. I mean, it's hard to stop doing this. You know, you're having fun doing this. They would actually go out and do a murder. They would stalk and kidnap somebody on a Friday. They would take them to the orange grove where they worked and keep them alive if they could for a day or two. They would rape them, kill them, bury them, and then they would clean up and be back to work on Monday. So this is their weekend fun. So we have another murder. Again, they killed the mother and daughter February 19th. of 1981, and then they tried to abduct, were confirmed they tried to abduct someone on June 14th, 1981, and then we have another murder July 15th. July 15th, 1981. Gore is 28 years old, and this young lady's name is Judith K. Daly. Judy is at a beach enjoying herself, and Gore spots her, and Gore dismantles her car. Back in those days, you could pop the hood and, I think he took the distributor cap off or something and make sure it wouldn't start. And then he lied in wait when she came out from the beach and tried to start, it wouldn't start. He pulled up, became a hero. Hey, I'll take you and let's go. I'll help you get this thing repaired. And he put her in the car and it had a gun. He held her at gunpoint, handcuffed her, took her away, and did some very bad things with her. Raped her, and he murdered her, and he dismembered her, and he buried her in plastic bags at the Orange Grove. Judith K. Daly, what a sad story. She was visiting from California. Her children, I think she had some children, her daughter and a friend or something were with her, and she dropped them off at another beach, and basically they said she saved their lives because they would have been victims for sure as well. So now we've got the third confirmed victim, Judith K. Daly, and that occurred on July 15th, 1981. So then we have another, he finally gets arrested. He's hiding in the back seat of a woman's car at a grocery store. He's got a gun, he's got handcuffs, and he's got a scanner, a police scanner. She sees him, he gets arrested. He has another incident right after that where he flashed his auxiliary badge, his police badge at someone, and she got away and turned him in, and he got, so he got arrested for these incidents, and he was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison. 5 years in prison. Here's the problem we always have, and this is why we have these murders. Our legal system sucks, right? 5 years in prison, he's out in a year, he's at a halfway house, and he's released completely in a year and a half. Back to killing. So he's out, and March of 83, he's paroled after serving 18 months. So stay with me. He's arrested, he's paroled in March of 83, and here we are again, May 20th, 1983. He sure learned his lesson, because 2 months later, he's trying to abduct a sex worker at gunpoint, and it doesn't go well, and she gets away. So he's back at it. That was May 20th, the same day. He must have been frustrated, because the same day, he picked up two hitchhikers. Angelica Lavelli and Barbara Ann Byer. Angelica Lavelli and Barbara Ann Byer, both 14-year-old young ladies. They were hitchhiking. They were runaways from Orlando, Florida. And the monster, the boogeyman, picked them up and gave them a ride. Waterfield was driving. Gore was in the passenger seat. He handcuffed them both, raped them both as they drove down the freeway, took them somewhere remotely, tortured them, raped them, murdered them, dismembered them, and buried them. So on May 20th, 1983, Gore and Waterfield abduct two Orlando runaway hitchhikers, Angelica Lavelli and Barbara Ann Byer. And they are both shot in the head and murdered. They're both dismembered. And Barbara right here, this is Barbara. I'm sorry, Barbara's right here. She is buried in an orange grove, and Angelica is dumped into a river for the alligators to consume. So, two 14-year-old victims. And another thing we're going to talk about is Gore would love to take a trophy with him when he killed women, and he usually took their hair. For some reason, he loved their hair. Okay, so that murder occurs May 20th, 1983. Gore is now 30 years old. He's coming to the end of his killing spree, okay? He's arrested July 26th of 83, so we're at May 20th. So he's 2 months away from being arrested. And we don't know how many he killed this last year, few months or whatever. He was probably, usually what they do is they speed up their killing their victims. They start out, they take a break, a longer break, and then it gets shorter until they get careless, and that's probably where they're getting careless here. In fact, they did get careless on July 26th, the day they got arrested. 1983, they abduct two young girls. They were hitchhikers. Lynn Elliott is 17 years old, and Reagan Martin, 14 years old. We don't have Reagan's photo. Reagan Martin and Lynn Elliott are hitchhiking, picked up by the boogeyman. Gore takes them to his mother's home, his parents' home. They're out of town. Waterfield sees someone that knows him and he gets spooked and he leaves. So Gore is alone with two females in his parents' home. He ties them both up and he rapes them both. He rapes Lynn Elliott. She's naked and tied up with her hands behind her back. And he rapes Reagan Martin. Reagan Martin, 14. As he's raping Reagan Martin, 14, who's also naked and tied up, Lynn Elliott is able to escape and runs out of the house down the driveway. Gore chases her, and Gore shoots her twice in the head. And Lynn Elliott is murdered. How sad is that? And he dumps her body, opens up the garage door, and dumps her body in the trunk of the car in the garage. And these are some of the crime scene photos of the vehicles with the ropes and the ties and Lynn Elliott's blood in the back of that trunk. So he goes back in the house and Reagan Martin is still in the house. Is she going to live or die? A little boy was riding his bike and he saw Gore gun down this teenage girl and dump her in the trunk. He saw this. And so he rode his bike home, told his mom. Mom called the police. The police arrived. Now what Gore's tried to do is Gore started telling the police, like 911, there's a guy chasing a woman down on Maple Street. So he's trying to get the police to think that he's left the house and the victim's running, and so he's trying to get the police away so he can escape out of this house. But the police are too smart for that. They surround the house. Gore is in the house. There's a 90-minute standoff, and Gore is finally taken into custody. He's arrested. It'd be the last day of his freedom. And they find Reagan tied up in the attic, naked, handcuffed, and Reagan Martin lives. Hopefully someday I'll get to talk to Reagan Martin. She's probably changed her name by now. So Gore, and they go arrest Waterfield that day as well. So July 26, 1983, about the time I got out of high school, 31 years old, Gore and Waterfield are arrested. Gore's 31, Waterfield's 32. On December 17th, about 5 months later, they find Barbara Byers' body. Gore's leading the police to the bodies, the remains. In January of 84, Diane Smalley calls and said, Gore and Waterfield tried to kill me. Anyways, so the murder trial occurs in 1984, 1985. There's a murder trial, and Waterfield and Gore are going to trial, right? So this is what Gore looks like at the end there. David Allen Gore. He's the boogeyman. Fred Waterfield towards the end. This is him in prison. And they have a trial. And Gore is found guilty and sentenced to death, which is amazing because usually they'll give up the bodies if they get a deal and they don't get the death penalty. He gave up the bodies and still got a death sentence, which is pretty wild. So the boogeyman, David Allen Gore, is sentenced to death. He will spend 28 years on death row. Waterfield is convicted of 2 murders, and he is given 2 life sentences. Gore, Lavallee and Byer, the ones I showed you a second ago, that's the 2. This is who Waterfield was convicted of killing. Those 2 females. And so the story ends. Gore's convicted, sentenced to death, and he's executed. He's executed by lethal injection in 2012. He spent 28 years on death row, executed by lethal injection in 2012. His last words were, "I'm sorry, I've had remorse. I'm not the man I was back then, and I don't fear death." That's what he said. Waterfield still sits in prison in Florida. And, there's only one thing worse than a killer. There's only one thing worse than a serial killer. And Gore is no longer with us. The only thing worse than a serial killer, I'll show you, is a killer that claims they're innocent. I can't stand killers who claim they're innocent. So yes, Waterfield has sent me quite a few letters. I do have, stuff he sent me trying to claim his innocence. This is how he writes. I'm going to scan these up and put them in my fan club if y'all want to read the kind of stuff that Waterfield would say. Here's his envelope. You want to write him? Let's see if I can get this in there. And I'll scan this and it'll be in the fan club. Waterfield, I might write him again, see if he's had a change of heart and he wants to talk. But before we end this video, I want to read to you a little bit of what kind of stuff Gore would say in his letters. And these are taken from the serial killer whisperer, a kid who would write different serial killers, and he wrote Gore. And let me read a couple lines as we end this. Let's get inside the head of David Allen Gore. He said, you always hear that serial killers will take a trophy or a souvenir. Well, a woman's hair were my souvenirs, said David Allen Gore. I've always wanted to understand why I did that. Why I did that to women. He says, my actions were so far out of the norm. I've only told my lawyers that I was curious about that, but no one seems to be interested except for you. You asked about Fred and his mechanic shop. So they talk about a time they were going to kill a woman, took her in the back of the mechanic shop. Somebody showed up, so that woman is alive today. And they said there's many women who are alive today that had no idea how close they came to being killed by the killing cousins. He said he had a woman, he told her if she tried anything, he would shoot her, and kept asking, she kept asking, why are you doing this? I would just tell her to shut up. My grove was maybe 5 miles away, his orange grove. I kept the gun on her the whole time. We pulled up to the trailer and I made her lean forward and I tied her wrists together behind her back. She was scared and kept begging me not to hurt her and I asking why I was doing this. After I tied her hands, I grabbed her by the hair, pulled her head back, and with my hand cupped around one of her tits and squeezed hard and said, "This is why, cunt." I pulled her out, got her in the trailer and onto the bed where I cut off her clothes. She didn't have a fantastic body, but my urge was intense, and I just wanted one. So he talks about her body, her breasts are saggy, thick pubic hair. It's very disgusting, the letters that he would write. He said, older woman, don't trim down there, he thought. I ended up giving her a good screw. She wasn't the tightest. It's pretty obscene. I can't believe he's sending letters like this from death row because this is what got him executed. This sped up his execution, him bragging about these murders. He shaved her pubic hair. He'd spent some time enjoying her body, running my fingers through her hair, pulling on it, biting her breast. Then I slowly moved up, sat on her chest with the knee on each side of her chest, rubbing her face in my hands. I slipped around her neck as I told her I changed my mind. And squeezing and struggled before her body went slowly limp. Cleaned up, took his trophy. I mean, that's a guy from death row sending a letter out bragging about his murders. He said he when he was killing people, he was like a robot. I really didn't want them to say a word. And it depended a bit on what mood I was in. It's hard to really describe the emotional state I would be in while doing it. It was like I had no emotions. I was just doing it. And you know what? I got my biggest rush was really not the sex part. It was the capture. That's when I got a high. I got a high by the capture. The kidnapping got him off, not even the killing or the sex. How many women did I kill? Yeah, there was more than what I was convicted of. The cops told him a man wrote a book about us that he had done maybe about 20 women. So he doesn't deny that. You asked about my fetish with hair and scalping my victims and wrote that you can't envision it. I understand that, but it's like a deer hunter. He goes out and he shoots his big buck with a nice rack of horns, so he shows off the horns and brings them home to hang on the wall. In the mind of a serial killer, we do the same act, whether it's hair, jewelry, or whatever. We take it as a trophy from the kill. With hair, I'm not sure where my obsession for it came from, but I took scalps to admire. You asked if I dislike women. I don't, or I guess I should say not all women. Where I was on the street, I had a couple of best friends who were girls. The experience I had with my ex-wife when we got divorced really caused me to mistrust certain women. So maybe he was killing his ex-wife when he was committing these murders. He was also involved in, he was a lust killer. He was really into sex. He loved kidnapping, and he was probably angry at his ex-wife. Today the cops surrounded my parents' house. Let me tell you, there were so many cops. I peeked out the window and the ambulance was there, fire trucks. There had to be 75 police all around. The only reason they did not come in to get me was I knew I had another victim in the house. When I came to the point, I knew it was over, and I was going to give myself up. I actually told her to stay put and wait for the cops to come in. If I was such a killer, why didn't I kill that girl? That's a good question. It's really interesting why he left a survivor. I guess, I don't know why. Last letter here. You know, I guess in the back of my mind, I knew there was the possibility I could get caught, but I always figured I'd be careful enough not to. The thing is, the more you do it, murder someone, the more relaxed you get and the more careless you become. And eventually you get too careless. And yes, the urge can truly be overwhelming. That's what happens to most serial killers. The urge is so strong and they step up their murder spree and then they get careless because they no longer care about getting caught. I'd gone on a hunt that lasted all day and didn't find one. And by the end of the day, the urge would be so intense, you begin to think of prospects you wouldn't normally think about. All you want to do is satisfy the urge. That urge, one time, was so intense in me, I pulled up in my driveway knowing my wife was inside and sat there thinking about doing her just to satisfy, thinking about killing his wife just to satisfy the urge. So, hey man, David Allen Gore, Fred Waterfield, the Killing Cousins, two monsters, two American monsters who killed at least six confirmed victims, maybe 20. And David Gore is executed. Fred Waterfield still stays in prison. I will try to write him again. And if I do get with them, I will get back to you and let you know. Also, everything I've shown, pictures and letters and all that stuff will be scanned and placed in my fan club today. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. Please do me a favor, subscribe, like, and comment. Click the notification bell so you don't miss another video. God bless you guys.